since from birth we are conditioned by external influences. Our parents, we must have them. We survive only because of them. So they are our first point of giving all our power away. And we are conditioned with that, which is a survival mechanism. So that's a good thing. But then we go to the doctors and we go to the school and we give our power away to these people. And we go to the church and they get our power and political leaders and all of that. And what a lot of it is taking the conditioning that they know what's best and kind of breaking all that down, destroying that, and just leaving you there with, in the moment, feels like nothing. You're just nothing. You aren't even in existence at that point. But it's, as you said, a necessary part of peeling all that off. Perhaps the most important part and least talked about, the integration period. This is when that new structure reforms. Integration, to me, simply put, would be kind to yourself. Go easy on yourself. Again, the early conditioning onward is grind it out, tough it out, work hard. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's a heck of a lot to be said for it. There's a lot of hard work that goes into this. Integration is making changes that are absolutely necessary. If you can't do the same old thing, you can't go to the same old places with the same old people. The integration is incredibly important, as important as the ceremonies themselves, because it's the continuation of healing and removing or releasing these energies that no longer serve us, replacing them with something higher vibe, more positive, divine wisdom, and allowing that to just open up within us. Patience with these medicines. They're very powerful. They do some amazing things in seemingly miraculously short periods of time, but we still have to have patience with it because we still live here. We live in this linear world. We get to do some work in the non-linear world, but we ultimately have to come back here and bring that back here to make this a better place for ourselves, our family, community, everything. I think continuing that work for ourselves helps everybody else too.
Welcome back to my podcast, Ayahuasca Avatars. And today I'm here with John Patton. He is a traditional curandero. And yeah, he's going to tell us about his journey and what his path entailed. And I'm super excited. We connected a while ago on the internet and we had a chat. And yeah, I really resonated with a lot of things that he said. So here we are to share some hidden gems and little wisdom bubbles with you guys. So I hope you enjoy. Stay with us and welcome, John.
Thank you. Thanks, Nina. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I
Thank you
think
for having me.
you are from the United States, right?
Yes, Ohio originally.
So I
Hmm.
guess that, everybody wants to know like how somebody from Ohio ends up being a traditional curandero in Peru. So like tell us a little bit, what brought you here and like how was your journey? Because I think you are really like a world bridger, and it's good to hear from people. I love hearing from indigenous people as well, but people who kind of have experience in both worlds that I think we can more connect to, especially people who are listening to this podcast.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I grew up in the Midwest in a suburb. Nothing in particularly different about anything. Had a few major events when I was very young, which were life altering. My father died suddenly when I was 5, and that laid in a certain track to my life at that time. Um, that came back later as a form of PTSD. I don't want to label certain things, but it was an unresolved issue because it had happened so early in my life, at the age of 5. But so I really was just going through life like anybody else. I ended up in finance, and was in sales and then sales management. But all this time, there was something behind the scenes unraveling. So I was able to kind of maintain, but I certainly enjoyed alcohol as a crutch. It certainly seemed to temporarily lift the weight for a while. Um, and then the kind of symptoms of PTSD were coming up more often and more intensely. And I at first went to a Western doctor, and she was lovely. She did a very professional job, but on the way out, last thing she wrote was prescriptions for antidepressants. And I knew I wasn't depressed, so I didn't use those and I didn't go back to her. And it was sometime after this that I read an article in what was then National Geographic Adventure magazine. It's a famous article by now called To Hell and Back. It's not online under the magazine anymore, but it can be found on the author's website. Um, so I read this just one Saturday morning with a pot of coffee, and I saw the yellow border, the outline of the National Geographic, and went straight for that. That was much more enticing than everything else in the pile of junk from the post office. Um, and I read the article about halfway through. I was completely broken down, just sobbing. And I didn't know why. I didn't connect it to my seeking help for this issue or anything. And I just was having this experience. I pulled myself together. I finished the article. It was a woman who is a professional writer. She's a published author. She has written articles before as a freelance writer for National Geographic. And so this was her, if I remember correctly, her daytimer, her diary entries. And for a professional writer in her personal agenda in her personal diary was some spectacular writing, and it really impacted me. It took a while, but years later, I could see in hindsight that was my actual first experience with ayahuasca, and it created a purge. Now, the long story short, through that day, by that afternoon, I was already set and prepared to go into the office on Monday. This was on a Saturday, and if I had to, quit my career in order to go on the next tour. And there was a evolution process over 4 or 5 hours that was kind of interesting about that, but that's a longer piece. Um, and that led me to being in Peru for the first time 3 weeks after I initially read the article. And even then, I wasn't connecting it to the traumas or the PTSD or any of this. I just knew something called deep inside me that I had to have this experience. I certainly have always had a bit of a sense of adventure. So traveling to a city in the Amazon that you can only get to by plane or by boat was pretty adventurous. And then working with this medicine that I knew nothing about. But I think for me, it was a good way to come to the medicine. No expectations, no stories ahead of time. Um,
Totally, like I think that often people imagine that people like it's just easy to completely give up everything that you ever knew and take a leap of faith and leave behind your known world and go into the jungle or something. So I would love if you could talk into like that. It doesn't mean that we don't have fear or doubts or
oh
concerns,
yeah,
but there is some kind of like, I don't know, courage, calling, strength, or whatever that is maybe a tiny bit stronger, just a little tiny bit than all those fears and doubts and voices that tell you that you are absolutely nuts and crazy and what are you doing with your life? So, how was your experience with that?
smoother than that, thank goodness. Um, I had come down, yeah, first time early 2006, and over the next 2 years, I had come down a couple more times, and I had I heard the call to do more with this medicine instantly in my first time down, or that I could even think I could do this. And I thought, well, that's nonsense. I'm just this guy from from Ohio working at a bank, blah blah blah. And I kind of put it off, thinking, well, everybody that has this expanded experience uh, must have that egoic calling too. And I thought everybody had it, and I just blew it off. And I blew it off the second time I came down and heard it. And the third time I came down, I went through a tour and I started dieting at that point. And I actually stayed for 2 or 3 months at that point in late 2007. And then, during that period, I gave up my career, which was a big leap, which was a very interesting experience. I was in town between diets and realized I either had to go back now and finish tying off some loose ends with them, or just quit from Iquitos, Peru. And I realized I just had to quit from Iquitos, Peru, and not go back. It was in the mortgage business, and this was late 2007, so everything was going away and closing anyway. Wasn't like I gave up on a career that could have lasted for the next 20 years. But finance in general, I had been in for almost 20 years 15 years at that point. Um, yeah, so I quit, and then I ended up coming back to the States, trying to get back into the main kind of normal life again, working, doing some consulting work, and it was just really, really heavy. The person I was with at the time, my partner, she was amazing. One day she sat me down and said, you're not present in this relationship. You're not the happy person you used to be. And she asked me the question, if you could do anything at all, what would it be? And I just blurted out, I'd move to Iquitos. It wasn't I'd work in medicine or I'd learn anything or I'd do this or that. It was just I would move to Iquitos. And she said, well, you have to do that then. And I instantly, or very quickly after, felt an enormous weight lift off of me, which was just such a clear sign that, yeah, here you go. Now you're getting back on course. You feel it. And so I reached out to the center that I had done work with, and within a day or two, uh, they got back to me and said, yeah, that we'd love to have you come on down. It honestly, I can't remember it being all that difficult. It just felt like the most important
Mhm.
next thing I needed to do. So it was, so to speak, in flow,
Mhm.
definitely.
That calling, I mean, because to do this kind of change in your life, this is a fundamental change. You have to have like a very strong conviction or calling or feeling that, okay, this is what I meant to do. And I went through like similar experience, like moving away from my country, going into that was just so different, from where I grew up, all the conditioning that I received. But I had similar experience what you described, that even though of all of these things, I still felt that this is the most important thing. I don't know why. I don't know I have to go there. I don't know why I have to do this, but I just have to do this. And if I don't do it, I'm gonna regret it. My whole life. I'm gonna be questioning it my whole life. So yeah, definitely I can testify to that feeling. But at the same time, I think people glamorize a little bit this thing and imagine, oh, it is so nice. And then you are just
Mm.
one with nature and God, and you go to a ceremony and get all these downloads and talk to Jesus and stuff like that. And certainly for me, that wasn't like that at the beginning.
No.
Actually, my ceremonies was so hard and so dark, that I'm even surprised today that I kept going because like it wasn't easy, it wasn't something magnificent. So how was your first encounters, with the medicine and the
Oh,
first couple of experiences in the ceremony space?
well, I was as we say, top end purger, and it came out, and I purged pretty much every ceremony for the first 100 or so, and then it kind of took on a different characteristic after that. The cleansing, it just kept going deeper, but as I've seen, it's different when you're drinking ayahuasca and training or learning medicine than straightening out. It is going to do the same. It is going to straighten out that crossed energy. It's going to resolve those unresolved issues. It has to. So I was with this center and these teachers for almost 2 years. And then after that, it was for me to go out on my own and figure it out for myself. And that led me back to the United States for 5.5 years, where I was not guiding. I wasn't ready to guide. So, but I was drinking in a few different circles up there, and I got to see the ins and outs of a different way of practicing. So I was really lucky that when I went back to the States, I thought it was over. I just got back into my life and started rebuilding from scratch with this big couple of years gap in my resume to overcome. But I managed, and actually, within about 6 months, I heard about my first ayahuasca circle up in the States. And they were with some wonderful friends who are still very, very close to me, and we're very close. They still live in the United States and travel back and forth.
I think a lot of people do this kind of back and forth. Like, it's not like a straight path that you go to the ceremony and you clearly are told this is your destiny, this
No.
is your path, these are the steps that you need to take. I know that many people imagine it like that, but it's totally not like that. It's kind of like a trial and error, right? You trying to figure out, where to go, what to do, how this all gonna come together. What I'm really curious about is, when I work with people and I ask them what are their fears before going into the ceremony, especially with first timers, like the number one or number two fear for most people is like going crazy and losing their mind, right?
Mm.
And I certainly went through this kind of experience that I don't know how it's called in a spiritual way, maybe dissolution of identity or something, but we are product of our conditioning. We come from a society, a family, religion, and we are completely programmed to have a certain perspective, right, in life, and to whatever we encounter, we can place it in that framework that we have in our mind, what is good, what is bad, how to live, what to do, not to do, all these kind of things. And for me, when I started working with this plant, right, that expands awareness, suddenly I started to see things from a completely different perspective. And after a while, I got into a point when like literally everything was questioned, that I accepted as truth. I accepted as like a valid reference point before. It was just a big question mark, instead
Yeah.
of that. And it was a very disorienting feeling and scary at one point, I have to say. I consider that maybe I'm gonna end up in some mental hospital. This is what it means, is to go crazy, that I'm like really losing it. I'm like, you are in that like in between, that there's like the old reference points are not there anymore and the new ones are kind of still not solidified or anchored in a good way. And this can be like a challenging experience, but also it's in a way it's a necessary experience to go beyond that little box that we were put in. Like, can you share a little bit about that?
It is. Well, since from birth, we are conditioned by external influences. Our parents, we must have them. We survive only because of them. So they are our first point of giving all our power away. And we are conditioned with that, which is a survival mechanism. So that's a good thing. But then we go to the doctors and we go to the school and we give our power away to these people. And we go to the church and they get our power and political leaders and all of that. And what a lot of it is taking the conditioning that they know what's best and kind of breaking all that down, destroying that, and just leaving you there with, in the moment, feels like nothing. You're just nothing. You aren't even in existence at that point. But it's, as you said, a necessary part of peeling all that off. We often described it as an energetic structure within the person. And we all have one. We're born with one, and then it is adjusted by experiences throughout our life. And it breaks down that energetic structure. Ayahuasca, in particularly, the diets, Wachuma also does that. And it breaks down, removes or releases the energies that no longer serve us and builds a new structure throughout perhaps the most important part and least talked about, the integration period. This is when that new structure reforms. We might have the experience in a ceremony where everything is done. I saw it all come down. I saw it go away. I saw the medicine come in. I saw myself whole. And that's beautiful and that's real. But it's also in the space of medicine, which is just a little outside of this reality, our time and space. So it's important to understand that when they come back out of ceremony and they come back into this linear world of yesterday, today, and tomorrow, it's going to take time for this to to solidify in their system, to really integrate into their system.
Yeah, totally. And I would love to talk a little bit more about the integration part because definitely most people are into it. Let's go to the ceremony as much as
Yeah,
possible.
yes.
I have
So
to
get
say, I
started.
had like pretty intense experiences in the ceremony container, but not as much as the integration was intense, like so it's like that's when the shit really hits the fan in the everyday life,
Yes,
right? And
yes.
I think that it's extremely important that people have support, especially at the beginning during this period, because it can be scary, as we said, like you thinking going crazy, that can stop people in their process, in that integration and regress and say, okay, that is too much. I don't want to go there. I don't know how to handle this. I don't know what to do with this. So what is that, based on your experience, that first of all, what is that you call integration? What is the purpose of the integration? And what are the main tools or things that people can reach out for or practice to actually help themselves or receive support during this time that is so important, to, as you said, to anchor, to ground all those insights, all those shifts that already took place on energetic
Mhm.
level, but it's up to us to embody, and oftentimes people don't embody, and then it just becomes a memory. Yeah, I had that like crazy trip with the ayahuasca, but my life is still the same, basically.
Yes, that can happen. Integration, to me, simply put, would be kind to yourself. Go easy on yourself. We're again, the early conditioning onward is grind it out, tough it out, work hard, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's a heck of a lot to be said for it. There's a lot of hard work that goes into this, but making one is integration, is making changes that are absolutely necessary. If you need to make changes when you get back, you can't do the same old thing. You can't go to the same old places with the same old people. That's kind of an obvious one. Look for mindful practices that slow you down. And that could be anything. That could be weight training. That could be yoga. That could just be seated meditation, zazen, um, whatever works. Try a bunch of different things. I did. And, I found what works for me and I continue with that. It's really important to give yourself the time to integrate the work you've just done, whatever that work is.
How important you think that people have an experienced guide that can support them in their integration, at least at the beginning until they learn and they get the hang of it? Like, how
Oh, absolutely.
important do you think that is?
Very important. Yeah, absolutely. And it's sometimes the person they work with the medicine can fill that role. And sometimes there are many certified counselors now. I have them listed on my website. Also, I think it's a link. There's a link there to MAPS, which has an integration therapy page. So yeah, it's really important to speak with someone. But a few rules are: one, again, be gentle with yourself. Make no large decisions,
Mm.
big decisions. Don't go home and quit your job. Take it from me, I did it. Now it worked for me. It was the right thing, but it wouldn't have been recommended at the time at the time that I did it.
Mm.
Uh, but yes, making big decisions within 3 to 6 months after a series of ceremonies is best to be avoided regarding relationships, jobs, living arrangements, whatever.
I
Yeah,
totally agree with that. I always say this to my clients, and obviously I did do the opposite like yourself.
oh yeah, yeah.
But
You
I
know,
mean,
I will
sometimes it
be the
doesn't.
first to admit I also broke that
Yeah,
suggestion.
but there is also exemptions, right? If somebody is in an abusive relationship, toxic, whatever, and they recognize
Yeah,
that
yeah,
they're not
yeah.
gonna wait 6 months to leave, an abuser or something. So of course
Absolutely.
nothing is black and white. Back, to having like an integration therapist, and if people have a chance to work with the person who is helping them in the ceremony space, I think that is great. Sometimes people have separate integration coaches or therapists, to help them after,
Hmm.
outside of the container. I would like to talk about that a little bit because now this is so many trainings, for this. And now this is the new hype. Like it was like yoga teacher like 20 years ago, everybody's yoga teacher. Now everybody is psychedelic integration coach. So
Yeah.
yeah, I just want to talk into it a little bit. I think for me, the first and most important thing is that that person who you go to has personal experience. And I don't mean one, I've been to one ceremony, but years
Yes.
and years of personal experience. And that person is specializing in the medicine that you're working with. Because I noticed that a lot of programs is like all psychedelics. So I'm an integration coach with whatever medicine, and I don't think you can group together ketamine with ayahuasca or whatever. Like it's just not the
Yeah.
same. And for me, it's like, if you need a brain surgery, you don't want to go to a general doctor who, yes, it was brain surgery, maybe one class, included in their training. You want to go to somebody who specializes in brain surgery. That's all they do. They're really an expert. They have a lot of experience. And I think ayahuasca for me is that category. It's not a joke, it's a very powerful tool. It's a very powerful ally. And I think it's extremely important that people choose integration coaches or therapists who have that personal experience on a very deep level and who have adequate training, because that's the other thing, that there's a lot of people just because they drank a bunch of medicine, they think, okay, now I can help other people to integrate the experience. And I think so, to a certain extent that can be true, but also you need training in, trauma healing, like emotional healing. Like you need to have tools, to help people, especially in a crisis situation when they experience, intensity, emotional flooding, state of shock, memories, recovered, of horrible things. Like so for me, that would be just like personal experience, being specialized in one one or two medicines and not having a card that says, "Hey, I'm ketamine, ayahuasca, MDMA." Like, those people who have like 20 professional listed, like, and that's for me, it's always like suspicious a little bit. And then to have also adequate training and experience of holding space for people in general, and then in the integration. What is your take on it? What would you say when people choosing, to somebody to work within the integration? What is the most important?
Well, speak with them, and it's similar to working with somebody that's going to guide your ayahuasca ceremony, shaman, maestro, curandero, whatever. Is if you can meet them in person, that's optimal. That's very often impossible. Get on a video call if possible, or a phone call, and feel how you feel speaking with them. Is this somebody that instills confidence in you and tranquility and is what you feel like you're looking for? Then you go forward and you have a session with them, and then you really know after more of a session their line of questioning or how they work and what their experience is, and your level of comfort with that. So I recommend trying to get to know them as much as possible beforehand. Um, like you said, there's probably a lot of counselors that have completed a 6 month or a 1 year course and have very limited experience with these medicines. These medicines are almost completely experiential. It's You can describe in detail what your experience was, but another person can't possibly fathom the actual experience itself.
Yeah,
So
totally. There is that saying that you cannot take people where you've never been. And I think
yeah,
it applies here, very much
yeah,
so. And I totally agree, that follow your intuition and see if that's a good match for you, that person and how you feel in the sessions and after the sessions, because one of my clients just said, last week that I always have a little bit of nervousness when I come to the session because they are intense, like we
oh,
digging into the dark stuff,
mhm,
and there is intensity just like in the ceremony. It's not all sun and roses. But she said, but afterwards, I always feel better. I always feel relieved, uplifted, calmer.
yeah,
I think that's very important that, whatever work it's happening in container, that you keep feeling better, you keep feeling empowered, more uplifted,
yes.
more connected with your power,
Well,
internal guidance, all of these things, if whatever therapy or container you go to that disempowers you, that just makes you feel worse than you came in with,
yes,
that's
and
not
that's
the best.
that's what we would consider real medicine. It hurts up front, it tastes bad up front, it's difficult up front, but in the end, the good feeling is something permanent and lasting. And yes, that's a great integration right there, coach, a great integration therapy session. It
Right.
should be a little uncomfortable. It's what you're digging into. It's kind of like ayahuasca
Yeah.
itself.
What is your take on how much medicine to drink? And obviously, we're talking about people who come for healing, self-discovery. It's a completely different question if you are training to serve medicine, to hold space in the medicine circle, then it's a different question. So I want to talk about people who come for healing, self-discovery, and there is many people who just say, just drink more medicine. Like, I mean, with peyote, that's what they say. The makaram is, if you feel bad, eat more medicine. If you feel good, eat more medicine. If you feel whatever is going on, just take more medicine. It's
Mm,
kind of a little bit
well,
different experience, but right, some people have that perspective in the ayahuasca. You just need to drink more medicine. I'm definitely on the line of like, if you have like a journey with the medicine, a retreat, a training, whatever you're doing, having some ceremonies my experience is that at least like 6 to 12 months that integration can play out. That is, very much connected. So I don't really recommend people to drink medicine every 2 weeks. I know in the Santo Daime, there's other traditions, different. So I'm just curious of what you think
Yeah.
medicine
You
you need.
mean not how much in an individual ceremony or how many ceremonies or how
Both,
often?
actually, because
Every.
it's also a question for people. Shall I go up and drink more, and how much shall I drink? And, within the ceremony, and then also, how many ceremonies shall I have, in within a short amount of time?
Yeah, well, within a ceremony, I attempt to give somebody enough. Well, in the first ceremony, I will give somebody, I'll back off a little bit because I don't know their tolerance, and a little might be a lot. They can always drink twice, but once I understand what a person, the quantity they need to really get deep into the space, then I'll just try and give that to them right up front. It is dose dependent. And one of the biggest problems that I've witnessed over time is when somebody goes up and they just go, well, I just want a little less. That can be fine depending on what work that person has done with that maestro. But if they're not purging, then I'd say they aren't drinking enough. And there's probably going to be a whole lot of people, if they see this, they're going to have a problem with that statement. But I believe if you're drinking this to really have a full experience and a full cleansing of ayahuasca, then it responds directly to the level of commitment we make. Commitment in courage, commitment in time. For one person, a plane ticket may not be very much money. For another person, that same plane ticket might be 3 months savings. So it's coming all the way down here. It's a huge commitment, and they're really stepping up for their own healing. I would say they, if you a treatment is 3 to 5 ceremonies, I would say if just like you said, 6 to 12 months afterwards is going to be the strongest part of the integration. I used to literally feel a shift right at the 6 month mark after my first 2 or 3 times down here. Then I was in training and we were having ceremonies so often that you weren't as aware of those things. It was kind of an ongoing process.
Yeah, totally. No, I agree. I experienced something tiny bit different that, the more time passed, the more I work with the medicine, I seem to need less to
Oh
have
yeah,
connect,
yeah. The
So is there
reverse
something
tolerance is
that
real.
happens? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Reverse tolerance is real over time. Certainly.
Right.
Yes, I drink a very tiny amount compared to when I began.
Mhm.
Sure.
Right. Maybe
Um,
that's
but
because
even
also
then,
there's a lot of stuff you have to work through, break through, and you need that kind of power
you
and
need the force.
more
Yes.
cleared the vessel is, like the less you need to connect, right?
And this is, for me, I do at least 2 diets per year, every year now, to also maintain my energy straight and grounded. And
Yeah,
to continue learning, you're always learning from these different trees. There's so many out there.
right. I would say that's for me the number one criteria when I go to anybody who serves medicine or even just as a therapist, to if they walk their talk. If somebody tells me that I don't need more healing therapy or ceremony or whatever because I'm worked out every problem, I'm good now, that's very suspicious, Probably you wouldn't be in the body if that would be true. You would have ascended, some higher realms, but I think that's also something that I see. I live in the Caribbean in Mexico, in the Cancun, Tulum area, and the plant medicine is like crazy here. Any kind of plant medicine, any kind of retreat, You can go to like it's
Yeah.
retreat center after retreat center. And one of the things that I observe is that a lot of people, once they become like somebody who serves medicine, they stop doing their own work. They stop doing their own diets, doing their own work, and that can go into a little bit of ego, and like a bypassing kind of way. So I'm so glad that you said that, that the work continues always. It's not something that, okay,
Oh
I'm going
yeah.
to reach a point and now I'm perfect. And I mean,
Yeah.
in our divinity, in our spirit, we are already perfect, but on the
Yeah.
human
There's a
level.
there's an old Buddhist saying, I think it was, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. No difference. It's just you have to do those basic things to maintain your foundation for the practice. And to me, that the diets are the foundation of practicing with ayahuasca.
And do you have
Uh,
like an in-person teacher kind of that you or you just do it on your own and you learn through the
I
plant?
do all of those on my own now. Yeah, I certainly started dieting with the teachers I had up in Iquitos, and and that's how you learn. I think it's really important to start with somebody who can teach you, um, and if at all possible, and it should be, if you really want to do this, stay with them and work with them full time.
Absolutely. Like an apprenticeship style learning, like in the old times. Yeah, I mean, I have a training program for psychedelic therapy, and I didn't even, the first year when I ran it, I didn't even have a manual because everything was in my head and based on my experience. And after like the whole training, I did it like through experience, like people going through their own experience and learning through the experience. I don't think this is something that you could learn from any kind of book or Google or anything. That's why, those trainings for me, who doesn't even require you to have your own personal experience with medicine, is like a lot of the training is optional. Okay, you can come to a retreat for extra money and actually take some medicine, or you can just do a training. Basically, we teach you the intellectual understanding of the whole thing without any experience. I just really don't think it would
Oh,
work. Like being a therapist for 25 years, I experienced that the deeper you go in your own work, the container that you hold is deeper and it's safer. And this is something that people can feel energetically. If I'm in a container where I can go and touch, my deepest pain, my deepest darkness, because I feel safe, I feel held, I feel supported by this person who is here or not. And if you didn't do that work, people will never go there in your presence because they can feel it, that okay, it's not safe to go there. And I certainly drank with multiple people, and I had people who I drank with, and within a couple of ceremonies I accomplished way more than within years, with another person who now in retrospect I recognize that maybe there was not such a safety, so I was like, there was a point when I stopped, when I never, no matter how many times I went back, I never really went through that point. And then I was guided to another person, and then boom, suddenly within like, I'm like, wow,
yeah,
this really works, like you have to, this is something energetic. It's not depends on what kind of certificates you have. That doesn't mean anything.
no.
I mean, if you are in the States in a clinic, it means something, but
Yeah, clinical. I mean, that's more Western medicine with certificates and stuff. But certificates don't mean anything in this.
right. And that's why it's like so interesting for me that, in the West, they want to regulate now plant medicine. And the people who attempt to make regulations, they are people who never drank medicine, obviously. So obviously, they don't even understand that you cannot regulate something with this mindset that you have because it's so beyond that. How are you going to certify somebody to be a shaman or like, I mean, it's just,
Oh, that.
the idea
Yeah,
is
that's ridiculous.
ridiculous, but of course, they don't even understand that the idea is ridiculous because they never had the experience. So I'm curious to see how this will unfold in the West when they want to standardize things and certify people. Like,
Well, then that would, I mean, if they actually go for all the way with that, that would just drive the practice back underground or out of those countries that would do that, I suppose, which is okay. It'll still exist in other places.
right, right, right. I think it would be great if people who are actually attempting to do some kind of regulation or framework, they would at least include people who are have a lot of experience and can give a different perspective that it's not happening like so much, unfortunately, yet, but maybe in the future.
Yeah, yeah, it's a wonderful practice done well. And I had uh, early on when I moved back to Peru in 2015, I had a really important ceremony actually with two friends from the States and had received some interesting messages that have one in particular that has played out in many different ways over the years. And that was when I first got there and drank, there's a very clear message from Spirit to find a way to make money completely separate from medicine. And I didn't exactly know why, but I also knew I had moved to Cusco in that area, and I wasn't guiding and practicing like that at the time. I still had some work to do myself. And so I did a few different things. And as I found out, uh, now I teach some English online over in Asia, which is a cool group of people. And what I found out is that a couple of things. It was very helpful during the pandemic because everywhere was basically shut down for a year or more. Um, so it was very helpful. Also, that I never consider money or allow it into the decision making process when I'm looking at working with somebody. Just the interview or conversation or whatever communication I have with that person and the medical questionnaire that they fill out. That's that's all of it.
So people don't pay you any money for your services, or they can make a
They
donation,
do.
or
I
how
do.
does
I
that?
do. I have a I have prices set up. So they do pay me, but what I'm saying is if I look at this and I see some things in there that are serious red flags,
Mm,
I'm my bills are taken care of. I don't need to do
right.
this.
I understand. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
very good point, because if you 100% rely on this income, then you are more likely to, that influences your decisions when you say
Of
yes or
course it does.
person.
I
I
was in yeah.
totally
I
agree.
was in finance for
Right.
18 years. I know what it does. And when you have a business, you have to think that way.
Yeah.
You've got to you have maintenance and workers, and maybe there's employees. They call it planilla here, and all of that. And you cannot avoid it. It's simply part of this world.
Yeah, and I think what you mentioned earlier, commitment from the part of the people, often because we live in this Western world, often that is through money. Because in my practice personally, in the past, many years ago, I had a couple of experiences when people would send their spouse or their children to therapy and they will pay for it, and it never worked out. So I decided I'm never going to take on a client who, if it's okay if they get help with the payment, but at least put something in it, like to make an effort, to make a commitment that this is important for me. I'm gonna make this happen. I really, my experience was that the people who sent their children paid for it. They didn't care. I mean, the children, they didn't show up. They didn't do the work. They were just like, okay, whatever. Like, it's not
Yeah,
my decision. This is something I'm pushed into. Somebody is paying for it. So yeah, I think from that perspective as well is important that there is some kind of energy exchange that can be money, that can be other things as well. Some people.
absolutely it can.
Mhm.
But what moves, dude, I pay my rent in cash, so I need to get cash coming in the other way, something to balance that out. But
So before I finish, I would love to circle back to what we talked about, this complete change of perspective that I love to measure, with my clients when they come to the program. I ask them to list their first five, the biggest values, their ethics, like what is the most important, what do they live by, and people often say very similar things, what's important for them to be successful, to be a provider, to have financial stability, to have good relationships, whatever health. And then at the end of the program, we go through the same question and it's like completely different. I'm not gonna
sure.
start the general because I'm curious if you remember, I'm sure you recall how did your value system change, and what would you say the most important things for you now in like your guiding lines that okay, this is what I live by?
Now I value relationships much more than say money. Um, Working in finance gave me the opportunity to make a pretty good income and see that that didn't make me any happier to make X or 3X was the same. And I wanted something else for myself. I wanted something deeper. The one thing I have definitely learned is patience. Patience, because it was 10 or 11 years before I even held my first ceremony. And it's just a matter of never plan when for somebody going through their own evolution, training, whatever. Oftentimes, people will stay with a maestro until they are done, whatever that means, level of maestro, whatever they consider in that lineage to be at that level. Um, my way was different. It was just I was meant to finish this on my own, not completely on my own. I have very good friends that do assist for sure. We've got a great community here, and other people in other areas of Peru that I can count on if I need to talk.
Like what you said, I really resonate with, the relationships, and obviously it starts with our relationship with ourselves, right? And and then our relationship with the earth, with other people, with the elements, like with everything. And I think, in shamanism, right, they highlight this being in the right relationships, right, with everything within us, around us. That's what, brings us that peace and harmony and presence and coherence and alignment that I think most people are looking for, knowingly or unknowingly. And that's exactly, what comes out when I do this exercise with clients, that first, obviously, priorities are success, fame, money, being productive, having the right, things to
Yeah,
show that we are
yeah,
required, that we believe, to that we need to be loved and accepted, that very much that external focus, that in order to be happy, I have to look outside and acquire certain things. And
yeah,
and right when it shifts, after these types of journeys and experiences, like most of my clients put first and second place, like self-love, self-acceptance, and self-discovery, doing your inner work, love yourself, accept yourself. Obviously, when you do that, you automatically accepting of other people. Like, it's
hmm
natural that it happens. It's hard to do it the other way, I should be compassionate towards others, but not to myself. And self-discovery, and that what strikes me really, that people have this complete shift of direction of that, going from that outside, searching outside for our source of happiness and peace and love and whatever. It's turning that whole journey inwards and understanding that everything is comes from within, and all your answers are within, all your power is within. There's no need to search
Mhm.
outside, and your inner reality, your outer reality is a reflection of your inner reality, right? Basically. So,
Yes.
is there anything you would like to add that you observed, when people go through these deep transformational processes?
Well, again, back to the integration. The integration is incredibly important, as important as the ceremonies themselves, because it's the continuation of healing. You could think after spiritual surgery, if you think of it that way, in removing or releasing these energies that no longer serve us, replacing them with something higher vibe, more positive, divine wisdom, and allowing that to just open up within us.
Right. Do you accompany people in the integration, or mostly your calling is, in the dietas, in the ceremony space, in retreat?
I'm always available for people to reach out afterwards. Yeah. Yeah. And
Wonderful.
if they wanted to set up a chat, we can do that. Right now, I'm not charging for that. It's not taking up a considerable amount of my time that I'm really concerned about that part of it. I just want people to get the healing they need or the understanding that they're looking for. Um, it's a lot like you've probably experienced peeling back an onion, and you're getting rid of this piece of conditioning and this strange, unreal belief and this one, and then you uncover the truth underneath it all, which is in there. It's in there.
Yeah, yeah. And it is a process. And I fear that especially people from the West, that we're so programmed by the media to look for a quick fix. And we are programmed to believe that there is a quick fix, there is a shortcut, there is some kind of magic pill.
Yeah.
Maybe it was yoga, and I was ayahuasca, and I was bufo, whatever. Like, so, and my experience is that there is no magic pill. You are the magic pill, basically.
Yes.
And to change your life completely when you are in deep suffering, it's going to take some time, and when people, come to a consultation, and I tell them about the program, and the program is 15 months long, and they are like, oh my God, can I just do 6 months? And I'm like, you suffered for 40 years, 50 years. You repeated the same pattern for a long time. And probably even before that, your whole family lineage repeated the same thing. So, like, what is that you are expecting, that you come and have 3 sessions, and it's all gonna be gone? So I'm like, I'm gonna wave some magic I mean, I would be a billionaire, no, if I could do that, probably, but I can't. And then also we carry so much. I was just talking about this with a friend yesterday, that I think really our generation is the first generation who does some therapy, self-discovery, and it's not labeled so negatively anymore. Like, even my own father believes that only crazy people go to a psychologist, like it
Yeah, that's
war. And then my grandparents, they lived in the war. Like, there was no like, hey, I need some like, so it's really like there is a lot that we carry through history, through our lineage, and we are just starting to open those boxes and deal with it, and I think there is a lot of work to be done, and it will take some time, and it's possible to change, because I experienced huge changes in my life, but it wasn't, like this from one moment to another, and there was serious work went into it, and there are things that I'm still working on, after 25 years in therapy, 15 with plant medicine, like, and it's still, it's not uprooted. It's still, I'm keep, some repetition show up. So it's a lot, and I think it's a little bit wishful thinking to believe that, oh, you can just take something, some plant, or do something like a workshop or whatever, and it's all gonna go away.
yeah. No, there's no steps skipped
Right.
in healing. Now, something like plant medicine may be able to facilitate it in shining a light on the areas that must be addressed. But it's up to us to change our behaviors in whatever way necessary to keep those spirits out.
Mm.
If we go back to the same old thing, we'll just get the same old thing. Those spirits can come right back into us, regardless of the amount of ayahuasca we drink.
Absolutely.
So there is the after, and it requires work on our part.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, the
you
medicine
know,
is really expands awareness. As you said, it's making the unconscious conscious because that's where the root of the problem is. That's why we keep repeating things because we are not aware. So awareness is definitely key, it's first step, but awareness doesn't translate automatically into behavior, that you need to put some effort in that to make that behavior.
right.
I think a lot of people I know I shouldn't do this, but I'm still doing it. Breaking those old
And there's just, and that's fine. It's just not
pathways.
time for them. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. You can't force the issue. There are, like I said, no steps skipped in our healing.
right.
It,
Like I had this personal experience that, like when I was in my 20s, I was feeling that I have some blind spot that I'm circling around, and I went to everybody, psychics, tarot card readers. Like, I mean, I spent so much money, like to tell me what's going on, tell me.
yeah.
And then later, with the medicine, and it was like, I don't know, 6 years with the medicine, then, I have these memories coming back that was suppressed into amnesia, some like serious childhood trauma that I went through. And I was thinking, wow, that's so interesting that on some level I felt I knew that there is something and I wanted to know and I made multiple efforts to force it to find it out, to get that information and I couldn't. And no healer, no psychic, no tarot reader, even the medicine the first couple of years never showed me anything about that, like never, and then at one point it was boom, it just like came out. And in retrospect I understand that it was for my protection,
Mm.
it's a protective mechanism, like to wait until okay, I'm ready to face this, like I'm ready to go there, I'm ready to open this box and do something with it and not be re-traumatized by. And that's why, like in therapy I never force anybody to go into trauma, unless they bringing it up, they bringing it into the container, like naturally, then we address it, we look into it. But when I know that somebody had serious trauma or abuse or whatever, I never push or force them to deal with it, until they naturally get there, that okay, I think I'm ready to look at this or something. Because I think it's very important, and it was interesting for me to see that not even the medicine showed me this. It's I just wasn't ready, and once I had the experience, it was very difficult, to go through it, but I had complete faith and trust in myself that I can navigate it, that I'm going to be fine, that this is a moment of liberation for me. And even though there was a lot of intensity, but I had this strength, this guidance from the inside that helped me to go through that experience. And I think 10 years earlier, I definitely didn't have that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. It's a process. Yeah. There's a lot of things that you come around to also a second time, and you're like, I kind of thought I dealt with that, and then it's just a new level of the same thing. And
Right. Right. I read back like my journals from like many years ago, I think when I was in Peru, and I was like, oh my God, it's the same thing. It's the same thing I'm working on now, obviously, like a different level. But there were, oh, this was the information I received through message. And like, I remember things that the medicine kept telling me ceremony after ceremony. One of that thing was that everything is your choice. You
Hmm.
choose everything, everything is your choice, and you can choose something different if you don't like your experience. And this is something that I'm still processing on deeper and deeper level. What does this really mean, And it just
Yeah.
keeps, as you said, circling back to the same thing and understanding it on a deeper level from a different perspective, and then being able to bring that somehow, that insight into embodiment. How does that look like in my life? How can I
Mm.
choose? When so often we feel, oh, I have no choice, I have no opportunities, oh, this is, I inherited this, this really happened to me, like, oh, it's so on and so forth. Just something so simple, that this one statement that it's everything is your choice, and you do have a choice, is like, wow, a totally mind-blowing thing that you can keep exploring till the end of your life, right?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And when I do my own work in my diets, for instance, um, well, we were talking about purging physically and amounts. When somebody is guiding a ceremony, they're drinking a very small amount, just enough to connect to the space and do the work they need to do. For instance, when I'm dieting on my own, I also drink ayahuasca during my diets towards the end, and I drink of a large amount, that much more than I would ever drink guiding, because I want to go deeper and get that cleansing of whatever may need to come out. And that's a really, well, it's not an easy thing to do, but it's really important. I think continuing that work for ourselves helps everybody else too. We've got to maintain our grounding and our clarity. Well, if we don't, I think our practice suffers. I think mine would not be as good if I wasn't continuing to diet.
When I had a really mind-blowing experience during the ceremony, and I was like, wow. At one point I was telling the medicine, okay, can we pause now, because I cannot even like receive more. It's like so much mind blown. And then told me that she showed me like a grain of a rice, and she said, this is what I showed you now, this much, like a grain of rice, and the mystery of life is infinite. Because my feeling in the ceremony was that now I get it. Now I understand how the world works,
Yeah.
everything. Like, oh
In
my
the moment.
God. And then she was like, this is how much you've seen from the great mystery. So I think that was a good moment, a good reference point that I always remember when my ego gets like, oh, I get it. I
Yeah.
understand. Finally, I remember that moment. It's like, this is how much you understand now, okay?
Mhm.
All right.
Yes. Yeah. You realize you know less and less the farther you go along with this, which is fine.
Yes.
Um,
It's
yeah.
like an
Yeah.
unlearning, right? An unconditioning, but when you decondition yourself or deprogram yourself, there is some innate wisdom or knowing that arises that was like always there. No,
Yes.
you couldn't.
Yeah. It seems to be encoded in us and rises to the surface over time as it needs to. And yeah, the people, they're just patience with these medicines. They're very powerful. They do some amazing things in seemingly miraculously short periods of time, but we still have to have patience with it because we still live here. We live in this linear world. We get to do some work in the non-linear world, but we ultimately have to come back here and bring that back here to make this a better place for ourselves, our family, community, everything.
Absolutely. This is, I think, so important. I'm grateful that you brought this up. I think this is great for closing, because I think a lot of people fall into that trap of spiritual bypassing now. They live in the fifth dimension or whatever,
Yeah.
And I think all the whole point of the work, as you said, is to be here now, as Ramdas said, just be here now and make here a better place. This world,
Yes.
this earth, take better care of each other, of our planet, of our home, of everything within us around us, and that is the measurement, and that's also a good gauge for people, when you are choosing a retreat center, when you're choosing a facilitator, when you're choosing the therapist, to look at their life in the material, that tells a lot you about how balanced and anchored they
Yeah,
are.
if you can see, yeah, if you can find out, the more you find out about a person, the better you can either make a decision to work with them or easier to make the decision not to work with them. Um, yeah, talk to people, read stuff, get all the information you can and make the best decision and find somebody you, one, feel comfortable with, and two, you can feel like you can trust to guide you through the medicine. And that's what I want when I talk with people, because if they don't, for whatever reason, I'm happy to introduce them to some other people, or if they just want to go, find another person to work with on their own, that's great. Because if they don't have trust, some level of trust in the person guiding, that in itself can be a block to the medicine flow.
Absolutely. And that doesn't even necessarily mean that the practitioner is not good or not
No,
prepared, because it can be
no,
simply can be for a woman is like, hey, I cannot work with a man. I want a woman to guide
yes,
me, vice versa. It can be very gender specific, be it trauma specific, who people are
yeah,
comfortable with, to be in the same space, to be guided by. So it's not necessarily a judgment, but as you said, people have to trust their inner knowing and intuition. And even if they think, oh, this person is properly trained, prepared, I should choose this person because it ticks every boxes mentally, but I don't feel, I feel anxiety, I feel whatever, then they have to honor that and find somebody, because that's extremely important, that people can relax in the container and can be open and vulnerable in order to access, parts of them that they need to
sure,
be with. Hmm.
sure. Yeah, they're giving a lot of trust in the medicine, and they need to trust the people they're working with
Right, right.
as much as possible. And, it sets you up for the best experience to go as deep as possible. And don't be afraid to drink a little more.
Yes. I
It
always say
won't
to my clients, if you are asking yourself in the ceremony, shall I drink more or shall I not? Then drink more.
That's
Because
a yes.
you had enough, you don't even like
Yeah.
register
Yeah.
that there was another serving,
When it's,
you are like,
yeah, usually when it's a no, you either are not conscious of a no or an
yeah.
answer, or it's real clear that you've got enough in you to do the work you need to do that evening.
Yeah, I
Yes.
agree. I agree. Well, there's so much that I still wanted to talk about, but I think we're gonna wrap it up for this episode, and hopefully I can make you maybe in the future to come for another conversation. Is there anything you want to share before you go, or if you want to share where people can connect with you, if people feel, particularly drawn to you and
Well, thank you. No, well, thank you for the opportunity. This is the first time I've done a podcast type interview, so this was really fun. I enjoy it. To contact me, my website is just simply johnpattoncurandero.com, or I'm on Facebook under my name. I'm on Instagram too, but I rarely go on there.
Yes, we're gonna put in the description your website so people can just simply click on the link and look you up and connect with you. And yeah, if you feel the calling, connect with John. If you need, integration support, connect with me. If you feel drawn to me, like I'm happy to support you as well in the integration container that actually starts before. So I work normally with people before the ceremony to help them to prepare in a good way, a responsible
Hmm.
way, and then after, but I don't serve the medicine. So that's something that it's being outsourced to trusted people. And yeah, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate. I know you thought about it. You were not sure at the beginning if this is a good idea. I'm really happy with what we shared. I think it's important that we keep sharing, our experience or truth, and people have information available, because I know that when I started, there was nothing on the internet, there was nothing. And people, I think it's important that people are educated so they can make the best decision for themselves, when it comes
Yeah.
to medicine. So I appreciate that you came and shared with us today. Thank you so much, John, for coming.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. This was fun. It was good speaking with you.
Thank you. And for you guys, leave us a comment. How did you like this episode, or a question if you have? Connect with us and stay tuned for the next episode.